Hello friends, Gerard Scarpaci here, craft hairdresser and co-founder of the Hairbrained community, bringing you a very special Professionals Who Practice, which is our special series with Pivot Point, where we get experienced hairdressers and master educators to kind of show that they still practice with mannequins to perfect their ideas. Today we're working with Julian Perlingiero, and he's working on a creative idea, a creative concept that he wanted to try out on a mannequin first before he starts to work on live models at shows and classes. So he started off with this interesting disconnected layering panel on the inside. I'll let Julian explain the rest to you right now.
All right, thanks Gerard. Hey guys. Yeah, so what I'm working on is first of all, the look is going to be a bob look. But now what I find interesting about this is the approach to the disconnection. I started off by sectioning a triangle from low crown to high occipital, which would be the base of the triangle, and then working through to the point of the triangle right here, just being slightly behind the front hairline. Now, the reason that the shape is wider to narrower to compensate for the density change, because the hairline's lower in the back and then higher in through the front. So the section works the same way. Now, I set my layering just in through the center back, working on a concave angle. Now taking my sections vertical and over directing each section back all the way through to that front point on both sides. Now I'm just about on the last section here, and then I'm going to show you the result of the layering, right? So you can see falling just about the cheekbone, and then the layering through the back is slightly higher, right? So you get this kind of triangular shape through the over direction by pulling it back. Now, I had the layers done on both sides, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to work through the outline. So with the outline, I need to wet it down. So I have some Day Hair Mist from Davinus, working that into the hair, wetting it down so I can get clean tension. Now, from the front, I'm going to start to work my bob line, looking at the layering that I set in through the front hair. Right? So just looking at where I have this shortness here, and I want the bob line to sit just slightly below that. So I'm going to work about the lip line here so that the layers sit behind the front length.
Now Julian, is this a common thing where you kind of actually cut the inside first and then come to the outside? It's not something I see every day in the salon, and why would you choose to do it?
Well, for a couple of reasons, Gerard. First thing I want to do, the overall idea of this haircut is to remove the weight from the inside of the head shape. So by doing that first, I can see how the bottom hairline reacts to the layering. Also from there, because I do the layering first, when I go to cut the outline shape, the top hair that I already cut doesn't reach into it. You know, sometimes people will cut a bob. It's not wrong. You know, cut the whole bob first, then layer it, which you're cutting a lot of the hair twice. So this also tends to be a little bit more efficient.
So I noticed when I come around to look here that because of that kind of inverted or concave or extended angle, there's a lot of words for it, but basically shorter on the inside, a little bit longer on the outside. It's really like hugging the head.
Well, and I want overall the silhouette to be leaner,
head hugging,
a little bit head hugging, you know, with it. So again, by removing that weight, right, when I cut the line, the whole thing is going to collapse in a little bit. So now you already can start to see, just when I pick that out, I'm looking at the relationship between the layering and the outline. So with this connection, even though it's not connected by a clean guide, it still needs to visually make sense. So that proportion is really important, right? So now I'm going to follow this through, comb that hair down, right? Just look, I can see the density, continue to break it down with my curved sections, right? So now we're building a little bit of weight to it. There's my guideline. Now I'm just going to start to angle my knuckles in to take the center in a little bit shorter.
What's the benefit of the sections being curved rather than just basic horizontal sections?
Well, I'm working more of a rounded outline, you know, so a little bit higher through the front, a little bit lower through the back, right? And it works with the head shape really nicely, so you can see this kind of little bit of lower outline here, a little bit higher. So proportionally, I'm looking at the lip and about the middle of the neck, right? So, you know, with one lengths, you know, or bob lines, one of the first things that we learn is that your sections should be parallel to the line that you're cutting. So because my line's higher through the front, the section should be higher through the front as well. Right, so there we go. That's a nice little line there.
Now, once you put in this line, will there be anything you need to do between the layering and the line? Because you layered it first, then you put the line in. So will that leave some type of corner between the two?
Well, it'll leave a slight disconnection where it doesn't blend. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on the texture of hair, if it's a thicker density, you may come back through and work with a little bit of a slicing technique to marry the two together. Mm. If it's a finer or more middle of the road density, you probably wouldn't have to do that as much. Now on curly hair, see, this is really wicked on curly hair because you can do it and keep it completely disconnected, and then you really get this expansion where the bottom sits out and then the top, so you can really see, you can see the difference a lot more. That's why one of the reasons why I love to work on, really curly hair as well. Everything's much more theatrical. So working that through, I maybe have one more section, let's see. Right, all blended through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work that through on the other side.
So again, for those of you that are just joining us, we're here for Professionals Who Practice. It's a special series of Facebook Lives that we do where we work with great educators and hairdressers to show that no matter how experienced you are, you still want to kind of try out your new ideas on mannequins and practice. And that's what pivot point mannequins are wonderful for.
Yeah, these are great classes. Leading
classes, doing education, practicing new ideas. Julian's working with an idea here, perhaps a little bit different from what you would normally do. Yeah. So this is a great time to try it out.
Yeah, and this is something that I would do in one of my innovative cutting classes, something a little bit more, creative, which you're still working. I'm going to spin around so you can see my hand position, right? So you can see it from the back. I was blocking you there a little bit. So, you're still working with a very strong, precise geometric approach, but the concept itself is a little bit more on the innovative side, right? I hate to use the word creative because I think people, misinterpret that quite a bit. So innovative, I think, is the way to go, right? So now you can see that bob line starting to work towards the back, right? Sections are going to be more curved, working with the natural head shape, working with the line that I'm cutting, right? So that's where I'm meeting in through the back. Always looking at, where I'm going, with my cutting lines to make sure that, I'm being accurate. Can see the guideline really clearly. A little bit of elevation is going to take the edge off of that line. I'm still going to consider it to be a bob shape, but just not using a pure one length technique, right? It's a little bit of elevation, again, it's going to take the edge off the line that I'm cutting, right? So I'm aiming towards the center back. I always get this question, well, should you start in the back and work towards it? Of course, right? So that's what I'm aiming towards. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to match that into the length that I choose through the side.
So a lot of our friends are out here watching. Wayne Woodruff is here. We've got friends from all over the world. Lisa Rios is watching. Amy Grant is back from upstate in Red Hook. Nice. Benji Jones loves your presentations. Big fan here. Jose Rivera agrees with you. Creative and avant-garde are two different things.
Oh yeah, and the one thing is, it always needs to be beautiful. That's the key right there. Always needs to be pretty. Right. So again, working this up, and what's going to happen is, and Gerard asked me a few moments ago, what are the keys, or why do you start on the inside? Because I cut the inside first. When I'm working this graduation, I'm going to run out of hair quite quickly. So I'm not cutting the hair twice. I'm not going to do a whole graduation and then layer it. Right. It doesn't make sense a lot of times. It also is really going to let me see how the hair reacts to what I want to do. So, looking at it from a fundamental principle, and then also what's going to help me, see the shape. It's best.
Leah Squires has a great comment. What a time to be a hairdresser. Turn on Facebook and there's Julian Perlingiero giving a live class.
Look at that, man.
So fabulous. This is exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, Leah, it's something we do very, very regularly. I'm sure you've tuned in before, but sometimes almost every day we've got these classes. It's our mission at Hairbrained to go around, partner with great educators and great companies like Pivot Point, and share as much as we can with our fellow hairdressers here to uplift the craft. And who's better at that than Mr. Julian Perlingiero?
Oh, thank you, Gerard.
My very first instructor.
Gerard must love me. I'm getting compliments today.
When I was an assistant at Sassoon, Julian was a couple of years ahead of me already as a stylist, and he was one of the first people to take me through hands-on lessons as an apprentice. And we can tell some good stories about that.
We got some stories, but we're going to save those for a whole nother class, right? So you can start to see the effect that it's having. What I'm doing is I'm really kind of expanding this outline and looking at the proportion, seeing how the layering internally works, right? And a lot of times people are like, well, why do you do this? Why do you, because what I'm doing is I'm expanding it and trying to get it to hold out a little bit so I can see the shape that I'm creating. Now, the outline's not perfect. It's 80%, right? And that's all we can ask for at this phase of the haircut.
Would you agree that no outline is perfect wet, that outlines really need to be perfected dry?
Yeah, I mean,
if you even want it perfect.
Yeah. Well, what's perfect? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? So the thing is, it's kind of like, I have so many, people, and I won't name names, Gerard, when they were first learning, would focus so much on trying to get it perfect when it was wet. When you blow dry that bob, you're going to have stuff to clean up, so it doesn't give you the license to be sloppy. You want to get it about 85 to 90% perfect, and then from there, dry it, and then really, if you're going for that crisp Sassoon, we'll say look. Yeah.
It's a process to get there.
Yeah,
it's not one snip.
Yeah, I like it a little bit more organic. I like a little bit of a looser outline,
right,
which is just as precise, but I think it's more realistic, to an organic material rather than trying to look like vinyl, right? Okay, so now you can see I'm dropping this length over top, right? And you can see the underneath. Now, the sectioning that I started with was very important because I needed to make sure, and I said if you were here at that point, I took it on low crown, right? So the curvature, we have the high, the middle, the low. So I took it low crown following the parietal, which gave me enough weight here to cover that line. So I'm gonna have a graduated bob line. I have a concave triangular layer, and then another bob line over top of it. So again, the weight is removed from the inside of the haircut, and then it resembles a one length.
So this is going to blend back into the baseline, the
Yes.
outline? So it's like you took the meat out of the sandwich?
Exactly. It's like two pieces of bread with no meat or peanut butter.
These are analogies that we used to use.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like all the meat or the vegetables, if you don't eat meat, are taken out of the sandwich.
No, it's meat.
You're just leaving the crust.
We're not going to talk about vegetables.
Excellent. Hey guys, thanks for joining. We're here with Julian Perlingiero today. I see lots of our friends here. Rick Bennett just joined, Ira Ludwig. These are some great hairdressers. James Abu Alba, another great hairdresser. It's great to have other great hairdressers tuning in. The whole concept behind professionals who practice is to show that no matter how experienced you are, you need to keep practicing because nobody stays the same. You reach a certain level, if you don't keep practicing, you actually go backwards. A great way to do that is to use Pivot Point mannequins. Today, Julian is working with the Pivot Point Viola, which is probably the most popular mannequin in the world for education and for practicing.
Yeah.
They're available at Pivot Point Shop. They've got a beautiful head shape, like a natural head shape, all the right bone placements, and a great texture, and a great placement of hair. So we can't say enough about using great quality mannequins, and I will be honest, they are a little more expensive than the cheaper ones, but don't be fooled. You can go out there and look around and find cheap mannequins, but the worst thing to do is to try to learn on a cheap mannequin because the hair is fake, the way that it moves is terrible, the head shape's not good. It's worth that extra 10 or 15 bucks, I can promise you that. All right, Julian, let's get back into the lesson.
All right, so you can see now I'm taking those top sections of hair and pulling them down to that last point of graduation and blending it into the line. Now, I don't need to worry about this middle hair because it's not reaching, so I'm just combing right over top of that, following this through, blending it right into the outline. Just to carry on real quickly, Gerard, because it was on my head. One of the things that I find working with mannequins, and mannequins were taboo years ago for, whatever reason. But what I think a lot of people have come to realize, like I teach live classes all the time. right? I travel around, teach live haircutting classes, and when we do it on a mannequin, I can go through, based on the class's abilities, I can go through 4, 5 haircuts sometime in one day of education, where you could never do that on a live model.
Well, they couldn't even find, most people can't
Well,
find
that's what I
live
mean.
models.
You
Let's be
can
honest.
find 5 live models at one haircut.
To find 5 great live models, schedule it, coordinate it. So
Yeah.
yes, for practicing, mannequins are incredible. And I come from the same background as you, and it took me, I can remember the first time I cut a mannequin, it was a pivot point mannequin, way back probably in 1999, after 10 years of not using mannequins and going, oh my God, this is a great way to teach. You know, if the objective is to teach and for someone to learn and practice, mannequins can definitely be an incredible tool.
All right, so again, working that up, I'm going to work up to the natural parting. I wanted to say hello to Mr. Rick Bennett, didn't get a chance there. Haven't seen you. Oh, I say this every time you're on, Rick. I haven't seen you in a while, man.
Gotta make your way out to Oklahoma.
I need to get out to Oklahoma, buddy. Take me out and get me some good food. All right, so see how that's starting to work through. Now, I am going to lift up that edge a little bit to clean the bob line, but that goes to say, what we were talking about before. I'm going to get the bob line cut in, to a respectable precision, but there is always going to be refinements afterwards. So get the line in, then I'll go back through, comb the hair down with a bit more tension, and then work that outline to perfection.
I want to say hi to Ronnie King. He's saying, what's up, guys?
Hey,
We've
Ronnie.
got Kenneth Tham watching from Singapore saying hello. It's great to know that we're reaching people all the way on the other side of the planet here, spreading the craft hairdresser vibe.
Yeah, I just spent a week with Ronnie in Toronto, and man, Ronnie, how many haircuts and stuff did we get to go through? All working, actually with pivot point mannequins.
Of course.
It was great. We had a great 1-week class. I was out there in Toronto for Davines. Good to hear from you. Glad you're watching, Mr. Ronnie. All right, so there we go. All right. So you can see that bob line falling over top. If I lift it up, you can see the shortness of the layering inside the haircut.
It's like you gave that bob a little liposuction.
There you go.
Sucked out the middle of it.
Sucking out the middle. What's also cool, with Disconnection, not only removing the weight, it creates a different form of movement, right? So obviously when the hair gets shorter, it gets stiffer. Then I have length underneath, which is going to move one way. Then I have and expand one way. Then the most length comes from the top, which is going to float around, right? We see it all the time where everything's cut into a classic bob line, which again is beautiful, but it has a high level of restriction into movement. Once you take some of that weight away, you're going to see that top layer float around the head, so beautifully. All right, so same thing on the other side. And then we're going to get into the refinements for those of you that are waiting for that.
So for everyone that just joined again, we're here working with Julian Perlingiero, and he started off by layering through the center, removing the weight in this shape using kind of short to long layering or concave layering, then put in a baseline. Now he's dropping the top over. That's why we keep saying it's like he took the middle of the sandwich out, because he took all the weight out of the middle. I'm here manning the phone for your questions. Thank you for all the love and shout outs. We'll be sure to try to share as much of that as we can. But if you have technical questions, that would be awesome as well. We want to work Julian for all that he's worth. All right, so give us those technical questions.
Well, that was explained quite beautifully, Gerard. With the overall concept, of what we're doing here, and then focusing on the technique. Now, again, did the inside layering into that triangle, cut a graduation on the outline in the perimeter. Now I'm taking that top area, bringing it down section by section, from the back through to the front, right? One of the things with something like this that can tend to be a little bit more changing of direction quite quickly, just staying as organized as possible. Trying to stay really clean with my sectioning, precision haircuts, guys. Staying really clean with my sections, staying very accurate with my elevations and over directions.
So Samantha Baker is wondering if you could do the same technique with a different balance, perhaps more of an A-line or triangular balance rather than round.
Yeah. You could do this with square, triangular, asymmetric balances. You know, what I try to teach people, and when I teach, is giving them variation. That's why I love these questions, and I learned to do that by your questions. You know, because people would say, can you? Before it even comes out of your mouth, can you? Yes, you can. Right? There's so many different ways to go about this. I could change the balance and the proportions, but it all comes down to a fundamental concept of what you're doing, right? So the fundamental concept is that I'm taking away the bulk from the middle of the haircut by using a triangular sectioning through the occipital and crown to the front hairline, and then working a line underneath it and a line above it. Now from there, take it and let your imagination run wild. So yes, please, and do it. And guys, if you do this, so this is Samantha, correct?
That was Samantha.
Yes, Samantha, do that haircut for me, please. Post it on Instagram. I know you follow me at Julian Perl, right? Tag me on it. Let me see it. Guys, come on. That makes me so excited when I see people tag me on stuff and be like, hey man, I saw you do this thing on Hairbrained. You know, and then go from there and show me, show me what you're doing with the ideas.
Another question coming in from Lisa Smith. When working with this technique, should you use the natural part, or is it better to use the center parting?
I would say more often than not, I lean towards the natural parting because it just works with the natural movement and growth patterns of the hair. It also tends to work off of the highest, most flattering points of the face. You know, if we think about how the anatomy works, and it works on this kind of swirl, we have parts of the face, we're all asymmetric, parts of the face that are more uplifting, parts of the face that are slightly lower. So the natural parting tends to emphasize the natural beauty of a person. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do it down the center. That's fine. But rarely, I don't want to say never, rarely will someone wear it exactly in the center. So you're going to move it around anyway. You know, so again, by working with the natural parting, it gives you the natural movement, the natural growth patterns, and the natural swirling through the crown. So many advantages.
Julian, you've had a couple of people, Lynn Webster and Julie Ramirez, wondering why you're approaching it this way. Why not just use a standard approach, whatever that might be? Why change it up? Basically, instead of just doing like a basic layered bob the way people would do, why did you cut the inside first? Why the outside? Are you just trying to do something differently? Like what's the reasoning behind doing it different from the standard approach?
Growth, man.
Yeah.
I mean, grow, expand your mind. I could, if I did something the same way that they did it 1,000 years ago, I would never progress and evolve. Right. I would still be, trying to do something the way it was done 1,000 years ago. Right. I hold true to the classic concepts and I hold true to the classic approaches, but you got to take them and evolve with it and have fun and do something in its most modern way possible.
And if you're doing things the same way all the time, every day, you might get bored. I mean, nobody became a hairdresser because they want to be working on an assembly line doing exactly the same thing. So challenge yourself, guys. And that's what the whole point of this program is. When you want to try a new idea, and maybe you say, well, I've always cut this from the top down. Is there a way to do it from the bottom up or from the left to the right? Or get a mannequin, get a great mannequin and try.
Yeah,
and also see what you discover.
And also, and just to go on that, don't misinterpret that. That doesn't mean I'm just doing this on a mannequin because it's a mannequin. This is practicing to give me the understanding to be able to do it on a clientele that pays me lots of money to cut their hair. Right? This isn't just for fun. We practice to perform. And the performance, this is rehearsal for the performance. Right? So, we have to evolve. We have to continue to practice, but then we have to put that practice to good measure. Right? And that's where the performance comes in. All right, so finished up there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to work this outline. I was saying, the outline isn't perfect in the back. I cut it in my fingers, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to comb it down now. You can see that the hair is just slightly dry. Now, when I cut it, because I do want a little bit of looseness, keep it a little bit more organic, right? So you can see that drop. I'm going to comb this down, just brace it, and then work with the tips of the scissor. So I'm still working on a balance and a line, but I'm just, making the line look a little bit more, a little bit softer, a little bit more organic.
Tony Dorso, our good buddy, is tuning in.
Hey Tony, how's
He
it going?
says you're
man?
officially his favorite haircutter just by your virtue of method, simple yet highly effective.
Dude, thank you, Tony. I mean, and it's all about, that, and trying to share with the industry those qualities in our work. So good, man. I'm glad you enjoy, and I mean, thank you.
Great to have you tuning in, Tony. Tony's been a longtime friend of Hairbrained and a great educator in his own right with a great history. So always great to see. And that's one of the things that I love about this. We get to connect with so many people we see.
Yeah.
I'd say at least 25% of these people watch every single one and they contribute, and that's what makes the craft hairdresser community. Yeah. So why choose pointing here? I know you were just talking a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, what it's going to do is going to just give me a little bit more of an organic finish to the line. I'm still working with balance. Just because I'm using the tips of the scissor doesn't mean I'm not being accurate. I'm really trying to create a nice crisp line, but with the tips is going to just create, almost imagine it as being like a little bit of space in between, each portion of the hair, each fraction as we move forward. And, it's going to end up giving it a slightly more organic look. Hair grows down. When we cut it blunt, it looks precise, which is almost, it's more of an artificial look to it. But when we put that little bit of space in there, right, it just gives it that little bit of movement. And, again, it makes it a little bit more organic.
Speaking of longtime friends and followers, Jeremy Hickson just tuned in.
Awesome.
And he's wondering if you could recap the haircut up to this point.
Yeah. Let me just finish this right here, this last little portion, Jeremy. Right, so what we're working on is a bob line with an internal disconnection. So it started out, taking my section, from, high occipital to low crown, right? And that was the base of my triangle that followed through, so follow my fingers, right, to the point of the triangle, just being behind the hairline and through the front. I started out working a slight concave layer within that portion of the haircut, and then over-directed slightly back to keep a little bit more weight through the front area, right? Still on a curved triangular shape. Once I finished that on both sides, I then took my sections with a rounded horizontal sectioning, horizontal diagonal, cut my perimeter down at a very low elevation, basing it off the layering that I created through the front area, right? Did that on both sides. Then I started to work through the top area with a horizontal section, combed it straight over the layering and blended into the graduation. So I have graduation, disconnected layers, graduation on top.
Thanks for the recap, Julian.
Yeah,
Again, lots of love coming in from all over the world. We've got Alejandro watching from Argentina. Brenda, really appreciates you sharing your creativity. Thanks, Brenda. We hope you can try out some of these techniques in the salon. Lots of love coming in from everywhere on this concept, Julian.
Thanks, man.
A couple of people are wondering what you would call it.
I just call it a bob line with internal disconnection. I mean, if I had to break it down and put it like, if I was doing a PowerPoint, I kind of think in my computerized brain, it would say bob with internal disconnection. Now visually, I think that, I'm trying to create movement. I'm trying to create something that's more head hugging, something that is leaner in silhouette. So it's like adjectives of description are great for clients and drawing a picture of the image. Technical terminology is great for a computerized PowerPoint.
Thank you, Professor.
Yes, so you have to be part artist, part robot.
So now coming through and working the opposite side of the outline?
Yeah, and trying to get that balance just right. Again, keeping my pointing to a very tight angle, right? So keeping everything really close together, working back and forth based on how the hair sits when I press it with the comb. I want to go against it so I can get it inside the scissor and cut it. Just going to pull that down, comb it out a little bit, hold it in the comb a little bit away from the neckline.
Looking great, Julian. Again, if you're just joining us, we're featuring Julian Perlingiero today, and he's working as part of our Professionals Who Practice series, working with a pivot point mannequin, just showing how he works out new ideas
Hold
and
on, Gerard,
new
look,
concepts.
Look, just as you said that.
Yes.
It says pivot point right there. How's that for product placement, marketing? We practiced that all night, guys. I'll tell you our secret there. So now just letting the hair fall, right? Totally organic, letting it fall, and then working with the scissors, freehand, so to speak. I call it expensive hand.
The texture on this mannequin is fantastic, huh? It's just got like that nice natural wave.
Yeah. What I also like, I mean, the texture really reacts beautifully to a lot of the cuts, well, all the cuts, but also it tends to have a natural parting. We were talking about the parting. You know, I don't make mannequins, but the way that they make this, it has a nice resemblance to a natural growth pattern, which is great because I comb it back, it falls, and it goes right to where that little swirl is.
You know, you bring up an interesting point when you say the way that they make this. It's something that I always try to mention. We always take these tags and we just throw them right away, right? But if next time you take a second to actually read the tag here, and what you'll see is that Pivot Point is an SA 8000 certified company. And I always like to mention this. So what that means is, as a global company, they have human practices. They treat the employees fairly. So even if this is made in China or Vietnam, they pay a fair living wage there. Another reason that makes these mannequins incredible, there's a video at pivotpointshop.com where they interview some of the people that work in the factory. They show the factory, a beautiful, healthy facility to work in with employees that are taken care of. So that's one of the things also that makes Pivot Point such a great brand and why Hairbrained is proud to be affiliated with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. This should be like one of those things on your bed mattress that says, do not remove this tag.
Yeah.
It's that important.
Yeah, it's just good to know because again, you know, when it comes to mannequins, there are a lot of choices and sometimes people will just go with the cheapest one.
Yeah.
But the cheapest one could be very unethically sourced.
Yeah.
Besides not being good quality. So here we have great quality and ethically made, which I think is fantastic.
So I'm happy. I'm starting to get happy now, right? So you can see that in my face. Now, what also is really cool about this, guys, the color options here are amazing, right? So you have this shorter layer on the inside, then you have this line dropped over top of it. You know, just imagine if that inside was colored slightly lighter, and then when you saw these darker pieces coming over it and those popping through, right? You know, you could really get some dynamic, color in there that I think, would be a quite simple application, but at the same time be really highly effective.
Awesome. So what are you looking for now as you start to finish the cut? And
I'm just admiring, looking at it, starting to say, hey, do I like it? I mean, sometimes you start to look at it and you're like, ooh, I got to change that, I got to change this, but get it to a point. How do you know when you're done? When it looks good.
So it looks like you decided to add a little bit of product here. Are you going to work with her natural texture?
Yeah, this is great. This is Liquid Spell from Davinus. Beautiful foam, which is going to help me bring out the natural texture.
And it looks like this could be something you just put product in and let air dry.
Yeah, we're in Southern California, man.
Yeah.
We do it like this all year, right? So just comb it. I'm going to comb it through with my fingers first.
Looks like it puts a lot of body and moisture into the hair right away.
And that's the key. I mean, what I love about, adding product to hair is when it does give it moisture, make it look healthier, but still, have the ability to enhance the natural texture of the hair, which I think is really important. And again, we spoke about these doll heads. It's not just, it's not a wig, guys, that, like one of these wigs that you buy at like, Walmart, I don't know, for Halloween.
They probably do.
It has a beautiful, texture to it and a little bit of movement to the hair. You see just kind of creating this little bell shape, here with it and getting a little expansion, but I do want to comb it through.
Again, really beautifully done here. Guys, if you did miss any part of this, this video will be saved on our feed forever. So all you have to do is go to the Hairbrained Facebook page, hit video, and you will be able to watch it from the beginning and see how Julian made this shape happen.
Yeah, and what's also great, and I do like to bring up, people will be like, oh, well, that's not how I would dry it. You could dry this so many different ways. You know, you could round brush it, you could diffuse it,
right.
You could use a paddle brush, you could use a vest brush, you could give it a natural finish. There's so many different things because a good haircut you can always style. You know, I don't like how it bells out. Well, don't do that. You know, change the styling of it, right? But it comes down to the, you know, utilizing the technique and making it come to life for you. You know, for me, I think that's quite beautiful. You know, if it was dry, I would just let it sit in the sunshine. I would tell her to go to the beach, come back, and let me see it. Remember Vernon?
Go run around the block.
Yeah,
How do you check a bob?
Have her
Run around the block and come back, and if it still looks good, you did a good job.
Exactly.
Well, again, guys, thank you all for joining us. Thanks for the ongoing support. Big love to our buddy Julian Perlingiero. We've got the Labor Day weekend off,
Yep.
so we're going to be hitting the beach, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Work on our tans.
Grill
some steaks. Thank you, Pivot Point, for the continued support of Hairbrained, and thank you for making these incredible mannequins so that we can practice our craft. Peace out, everyone. Love you guys.
Thanks, guys.